Welcome back. Episode 2 of this marvelous March 25th, Lighting the Candle. We are crackpots, and we are unbelieving that the world can't continuously and ongoingly experience the best day ever, as Ken likes to say. We're here to bring empowerment and good karma, good juju, good, excellent conversation that challenges the status quo in terms of there's something wrong around here. All of that said, we had a request from a week or two ago, and what I'd like to do this time is when we go around, this time, identify yourself and what you do, as well as answering the question. But I got this from Shelley, and I think it's a very good term, to discuss. And I'd like to toss out there for you transparency. So we will need, the diction person, and then we will need your thoughts on transparency. But why don't we start with you, Shelley? When you think about transparency, in what application and what does it actually mean for you?
So Shelley, my name is Shelley Kohler, business advisor for the state of Connecticut for all small businesses. And transparency is kind of the word that it is. It's transparent. In the human nature is being yourself, being transparent in your movement forward, in your agenda, and not hiding anything. And it kind of goes along with, integrity, but being very transparent around that so that there's nothing hidden, and everybody around you kind of knows. And if they don't understand it, they can ask you a question and you can clarify. But there's also, I work in the world with bankers, and small businesses. And what really rises to the surface and just in the business world is if you are not transparent on everything from your past to now, and you're going for a bank loan or some other type of assistance, and that pops up, your credibility and trust is gone. So, you're not being transparent about you had, a car, repossessed 2 years ago, and the bankers found out because they can look up everything because you were afraid, for whatever reason, right? But it's really, again, and all these things kind of come together, transparency and just owning certain things and being okay with that. I think on the other side of that is acceptance, right? So in order for you to be transparent about something, you'll have had to already accept that it either happened or that's where I'm going and this is the path or the plan. So that's kind of a very, unlike Ken, very focused and narrow. I throw the general out there.
Ken, would you like to respond?
Sure. I was actually probably going to be pretty focused and narrow too. So you called it.
I would expect nothing less.
Well, it just to me, it's, and I don't know what the definition is, but the word that comes to mind is clarity. It's, transparency is about helping things to be clear. And so it's not, I think where there can be confusion is it's not airing everything out so that everything is known. It's giving a clear picture, so using the bank example, went through a divorce and, my finances blew up and got the car repossessed and now I'm in this place. So because just having a car repossessed, that's not being clear. It may be transparent, but it doesn't bring clarity to the full picture. So, and I think a lot of times with business, it's, it's definitely like that. Just, saying, well, we make, we gross $10 million a year. If it costs you $20 million to run the business, that's a very different thing from if it costs you $5 million to run the business. So, so it's just thinking in terms of bringing clarity that, and we talked about this in the last one, leads to understanding and alignment with the whatever purpose it is that you're moving towards. So that's the word that comes to my mind.
Awesome. Shelley?
I've definitely met people that were too transparent. Too much information. Sorry. It's just, you know.
I was just going to say one of the definitions was having thoughts, feelings, or motives that are easily perceived. So that's a little different than what I was thinking. Because you were saying clarity and stuff like that, and this is more of a perception. You know.
Yes, and it's about being clear so that people can take what you're saying at your word, as opposed to challenging it or having questions about it. So if you think about how those integrate with each other, I can see it.
Yeah, but I also think, I think what Shelley was saying too, transparency can be loaded with fear, and I think, and then the integrity too comes back into play. So, you know, how strong you are in your integrity and in yourself that you can divulge everything about yourself with transparency and not have any fear of retribution, because you just need to do it, you know. That.
Yeah. What if transparency is the invitation to have your integrity tested?
Right.
So here's the nitty gritty that you probably wouldn't have talked about in a group, but one-on-one, that you need to know this about me. It'll either tell you what I'm capable or what you should be afraid of. And I've sat before bankers too many times to count in my career. Not all of them were to me telling a great story, okay? But I got to the point where they'd ask me, you know, how's things been going for you? What's it going to be? I said, well, I've given you all my paper. You've got all my, you know, P&Ls for 5 years. You've got my, you know, balance sheet. You've got my personal and business returns. Why don't you come back to me and let me know what your questions are? I may not be bankable. You know, you never have to fear somebody finding out something that your story doesn't line up with. You look at it and you tell me how you can help me. That's why I'm sitting here with you and not somebody else. Human beings by nature are imperfect. You know, if you remember, the definition of being human is the art of sucking at it, okay? So when you invite people to help you suck less, you know, to have more mastery in terms of how things engaging people, and the whole idea of being transparent takes all the weight off of trying to paint this picture for people. A picture that they actually can see through anyway, because you're not making sense. What you're saying, you know, it just doesn't line up with what they're observing in most cases. And it comes back to that, what was that Abraham Lincoln saying, you can fool some of the people all of the time. You can fool all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And I think what he meant by that was, why bother trying to fool anyone?
So I'm going to challenge that. Well, I'm just thinking in terms of, I think there needs to be a situational awareness when it comes to transparency. Like, you don't want the brain surgeon freaking out when they see what's on the scan. You want them, even if they are on the inside. There are times where, you know, and very often, I mean, working with children, transparency can be, especially like 4-year-old will smell fear on you. So, so if you've got a class of 30 4-year-olds and you get upset or panicked, you're done. You're done. So, you know, so there are times where, you know, we have to recognize, you know, I think too much transparency, you know, and revealing too much in certain situations can actually be detrimental, you know?
You know, there's a conversation called appropriate dialogue. There are things that move a relationship forward in a positive fashion. And there are those things that you don't need to divulge to every single person you meet on the street every time you meet somebody.
Yeah.
So would that be discernment, would you say?
I like that word.
Yeah, we use like in so we have our 3 values with Questor's Way that we have, but then we had these, there were 8 values that we were looking for in a team member. And one of them was intelligent decision making. And, and the ability to look, okay, you had a rough day and you have a difficult guest who's in front of you, you have to be intelligent about the way that you work with them and do what's right in this situation, not be transparent and blow up and yell at them because you're having a bad day. You don't get to do that. You have to be a professional. So, so it was that kind of thing, where it's just looking at the situation and thinking about what's appropriate. And even in business, I mean, a lot of businesses, if they're struggling and they're transparent about that, it disrupts consumer confidence, and that's what kills them. They got to kind of be a little bit careful about how they portray their struggles so that they don't inadvertently, just drive people away and now they can't recover. And then there's other times, like this guy, Nick Serio, who he wrote a book called Slice of a Pie. It's about a pizza restaurant in Chicago. And he put a letter out. He overextended himself, opened locations, had some bad luck, and he was going to shut down. So he put a letter out into the community saying, I screwed up. My business isn't going to stay afloat. And the community rallied. They all started eating his pizza and rescued his business. So, so there's no right answer. It's just, that's where the intelligent decisioning making comes in, and the situational awareness as to how much you reveal. Another pizza place could have said that, and everybody would have shrugged their shoulders and said, oh, well, another restaurant going down.
But see, that's what you just said was this guy creating a transparency situation where one didn't exist before. Yep. No one was aware of his situation. They probably thought, oh, he's got all these locations. The guy's got to be rolling in dough.
Yep.
And I know some other people. Lee Iacocca, you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Standing up before the United States Congress saying, this company deserves to live. It's not going to live based on how things are going right now. I need your help. Mm-hmm. One of the most popular statements of that kind ever. So again, appropriate dialogue is this theme that just keeps coming back in my mind. And it means that if you're arguing from a position that it's not probably in integrity or transparency or discernment or any of these things at all, it's more than likely a ploy, or a formula that you've put into place, like this is how I handle that. And even in many cases, people have forgotten that they made that decision. So I wonder if his accountant said, you got one more thing to do here before you blow this thing up. Go out and look bad. Go out and be real and just be authentic with people and let them know where you are and let them vote on whether you close with a bang, that they might come to your grand finale. I bet nobody expected that they'd now start coming and keep his businesses in place.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I think in this case where they're transparent, he'd already made the decision to close.
Right.
And so the letter was owning the things that he had done, being transparent with his missteps that led to the business having to close. And I think that's probably what people responded to. It was really an interesting one. And, and again, if this guy had been taking advantage of the community and hadn't done much, I don't think anyone would have cared. So he had he had a pretty strong social and community bank account. So, he'd been helping a lot in the community and that kind of stuff. So I think that helped with it. But it was just kind of interesting how, you wonder if he had said that 6 months earlier when they were still trying to make it work, how people would have responded. And it's an interesting thing. I don't know that it's probably, again, it's situational. But there are definitely times where I think too much transparency can be detrimental to the health of a relationship or a business or whatever.
Well, yeah, there's transparency and there's changing the conversation. If you're in a conversation where you're asked a direct question about something that you know to be true, That's quite different than somebody asking you what kind of day you're having, and then all of a sudden you throw up on them.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, my mom was never good to me either. You know, she always liked my brother better. You know? That's really great. So where do we take transparency? How about the whole idea, the whole notion? What would be the antithesis of transparency? I think the dictionary antonym would be opacity.
Yeah.
Do we hear people using that term much?
No.
It's usually said in the derogatory acknowledgement of somebody not being fully truthful in a situation where they know different than what they're saying. But we don't call that being opaque.
We call it being full of
Yes, full of pizza.
pizza.
We call them not opaque, but fake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what's the difference? Ultimately, who cares? You know? What's the real difference between giving a good rap about integrity, opacity, transparency?
The energy that it takes and gives off.
That is brilliant. Completely so.
But, and I guess what's the result you're trying to produce? Like, is there something you're working towards so that you're not determining these things in a vacuum? You know, it's like if you're just kind of wandering in the woods and you don't have a destination, you don't know whether you should start hacking down those bushes to get through or take your time and find a easier path. You know, it's just kind of interesting as we're talking about this. It's if you're not clear on who it is you're trying to be and why you're trying to be that, like some kind of a purpose or whatever, whether for yourself or your business or your family or whatever, how are you going to know, how are you going to be able to use these measurements of degrees? Where's your center of gravity for transparency? Where is your awareness of the way you value integrity? It's hard to talk about them in a vacuum, you know?
Yes, and none of this stuff is useful. You can't put it to use. There's no button to push.
Yeah.
The whole idea here is bringing you full circle back to what's the next best question. If you think about, and what Shelley said, getting us into that other E word, energy, I say, and I've read a lot of people that agree with me, and they had this idea long before I was born. We are receivers. I mean, we're like little transistor radios, and you can turn the dial anywhere you want to. So why not pick an energy wavelength that brings you peace and brings you empowerment that you can then turn around and become a transmitter? Mm-hmm. When you pop a pebble into a pond, it creates a wave. And that wave is going to have whatever effect that it has. And the neat part about our transistor radio-ness, it's not one size fits all. It's not point and click. And knowing that it's there may not be terribly useful in and of itself, but it may create something that's possible. Are you familiar, you know, with all of the chakra healing and all of that Eastern philosophy having to do with crystals and rocks and all of this, you know, feeling energy fields with people and working with people's chakra points and all the rest of that? That is a mastery level, I mean, that I hold in high esteem, and has absolutely, I don't understand it. And I have a feeling it's not something you understand. But the point is I don't know that we can really dialogue or have an effective argument against it. So many people have so many great breakthroughs in their lives having to do with things that they've done that cramp their body in a certain way, cramp their thinking and cramp whatever. And then all of a sudden, this type of energy engagement allows people to be free.
Yes, I think well, Shelley brought up energy, but energy, anything that's is blocked energy. Any negative thing is something that's being blocked. So all energy healers are doing is unblocking, letting you unblock what's blocked, kind of thing. It's not, we will never claim to be the healer. It's allowing you to heal yourself with your own energies. And there's,
yes.
the 7 chakras, there's more than 7 chakras in the body. There's, bazillion of them. So we just focus on those 7, but
find out where that energy is being transmitted and then open up to it and then release it. I love it. Shelley, any other thoughts there? And you think people who are unaware that there's energy transference all the time actually, when they hear it, start to understand why certain things happen in their life over and over and over again?
I think people have a hard time even understanding that everything is energy. It's still kind of a new science for people. And it is science.
It's 5 to 10,000 years old. And the fun part of it is we don't get a vote on whether or not we're part of the energy.
It's an awakening. When all else fails and people have looked to Western medicine and taken every pill, they're like, I'll do anything, right? It's kind of like the last resort. And when it works, they're like, oh, I probably should have tried this earlier. But it's also an openness, right? It's an awakening and an openness to understand and allow that energy in. Because it's a blockage, right? As Lisa was saying, you can totally block yourself off from even receiving any of that. And to have that open up through frequencies, which is another level of, everything has an energy, a frequency. People are like, no, it doesn't.
Exactly.
This mug. How can it's, but so that's where the awakening or the awareness and the openness to really understanding or even just wanting to have that. Not, you don't have to understand, and like you said, to understand the philosophical and even the physical nature of all that is far beyond, it's 12 years of school, and then even that, it changes.
Yeah.
So it's, as Lisa said, I think a lot of people are just now opening up and I mean, it's been around forever, between Reiki and acupuncture and Qigong and yoga and all the different avenues, right? It's what fits for you, but it's taking that step and maybe having a piece of yourself out of integrity going, okay, this is what I need to do for me. And I've been ignoring it and, not paying attention for so many years. And then really now stepping into that life when all your friends are back there still, kind of going, yeah, right. Then it's becoming more in tune with yourself, right? And moving forward in integrity with who you want to be. And letting the other energy just kind of take a back seat.
Yeah. So everything that we're talking about, I mean, the whole reason for doing this podcast is this is your self-help course that you design how you're going to use it. The words that you hear that make sense to you, that maybe make you want to go and look into a little bit more, Google, Bing, all day long. You can spend a weekend looking into the vicissitudes of just the word discernment. And all of the thousands of people who have something on YouTube to say about that. And what's really cool is that you get to make the design for yourself. However, when you get to the point where you're feeling open, you're feeling actionable, you're feeling empowered, this is our gift to you. We want you to be able to bring that for yourself and not depend on substances, circumstances, job, the right things happening at the right time accidentally. We want you to have a point and shoot way, not a formula, but a rigorous discipline of training yourself to be an improved self and to have the best day ever. Every single day of your life. Anybody else have any last thoughts?
Well, I'll throw a woo-woo thing at you then, since
Please, I haven't heard a woo-woo thing all morning.
so my neck was really hurting really bad, and so I wasn't sleeping, and I've taken to listening to Wayne Dyer YouTube when I wake up, and somehow listening to him, well, listening to anything except my own thoughts is easy, helps me go back to sleep. And all of a sudden, last night, I listened to one of his things, and I got up. I was still in very bad pain, and I laid back down, and I thought about channeling him or something. And all of a sudden, my pain dissipated to the point where I wasn't sure it was happening. Like, do I dare move? Because this feels good right now, and I don't want to challenge it. But so Wayne Dyer healed me last night.
He is still able to do that from beyond the grave.
He is. Love that man.
That's scurvy elephant.
Energy.
Yeah.
That's how energy works.
See, the ultimate healing power is not in our doctor's hands. There are those who say, and I know people that have done this, they've cured themselves of cancer, who are capable of altering your body in such a way that you are healthy and being more healthy each day if you're willing to do so. But you have to first be willing to be so. I actually can do this thing where people have bad headaches, disappearing their headaches. And I know Shelley knows how to do that. Ken probably does too. And it's all about presencing whatever the malady is, because mostly it's a resistance to something. And it's an out of integrity. And mostly out of integrity shows up at somewhere in your body. That's what the chakras and the energy and all the rest of that. So you might be a little bit jammed up in a particular area, the why of which is nowhere near as important to, I say, your willingness to have it go away. So I have, anybody else? Thank you. I like woo-woo things and I like Wayne Dyer, so you get two points for that.
I just share one word that comes up of, especially been working with someone who is very knowledgeable about the 8 extraordinary vessels, which are kind of like, this is like the ocean below the river of the meridians, when you're looking at like the acupuncture model and stuff. And when you're working with them for whatever it is that you're working on with yourself, the word that comes up is relaxing them. So they're active. There's, and especially in Western culture, there's so much do, right? This is about, he says, do no thing, do nothing. He calls it no thing. And so the word relaxing and just allowing things to just be as they were designed to be, I think is a good reminder for all of us at times.
Terrific. Thank you, Ken. Shelley?
No, perfectly said.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to put our first ask in any podcast that we've done so far. And it goes like this. If you enjoy listening to us and you want to listen to us more, pass along to your friends that we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which makes us, almost like a real thing here. Although most of us don't consider ourselves anything other than 4 good friends getting together, to shoot holes in the sky every Thursday. But in the meantime, if even one of you per episode is finding a little bit, a way out of a dark corner in your life, we'll never meet you. And at the same time, we did this specifically for you. All that said, be empowered, be well, and we will see you real soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.